Hello and welcome. I'm Navius, and this is Movie Reviews at the Box Office, where I review movies at the box office. As many of you know, someone requested a movie review of mine, and they asked me to review the movie Baby Geniuses. Well, actually, they asked me to review a different movie, but I reviewed the Baby Geniuses. And then it was later agreed upon that they would accept that as good enough. This is that. I'd like to thank you for joining me. Let's just get right down into it. This movie was action-packed right out of the gate. Huge plus for me. I love action. Good action. There was helicopters, there was sirens blazing, there was people running and shouting. Everything you would expect from an action scene was there. It was pretty good. They haven't messed anything up so far. And then you see it. You see a little baby running. You see a baby running, you see the feet like moving at an incredible rate, so you can tell that it's running. Clearly must have trained its whole life for this moment. Then they show the baby's face. They like the face part of the baby. They show it, and he's smiling. Not the most fitting facial expression for the scene, as he is running away from helicopters and people chasing him. So while this was all going on, the baby manages to escape the people chasing him on foot and the helicopter somehow, and he stands still right in front of a statue, as if he is himself a statue. Like that. He does that. To nobody's surprised they find him, because he's obviously not a statue. They find him there. They grab him. Well, they try to. He fights back. He knows some kind of martial arts. He's like karate chopping, kicking, all the things, all those martial things, kicking, punching, and runs off again. And he has some kind of an evil grin laugh, which I've never quite heard before. So that got me to thinking, is this baby the villain in this movie? This evil grin and mischievous laugh got me thinking, maybe the baby is the villain in this whole thing. I haven't really, so I don't know, it's hard to explain. You gotta see it, you gotta watch it. Maybe you won't have to after I finish this review. I'm gonna try to paint a picture. We'll see what happens. So it pans over to this evil man. Is he the evil man? Is he the good guy? I don't know. He's on the phone with someone who appears to be a boss, asking how the baby is able to escape from a secret laboratory 25 floors underground, which is quite deep underground. He goes on to say, Sly, who must be the baby who is running away, has a twin brother named Whit, who no one can know about for reasons. They don't say why. They don't say what happened. Well, it is still early in the movie, so it could all be explained later on. But They have to be it has to be a pretty big deal if there's helicopters involved, you know? So now it switches back. It switches to what I believe to be the underground secret laboratory. And the boss, who the evil man was speaking with over the phone, is given some kind of a presentation or a speech. I guess it would be considered a speech. I don't actually know what the difference is between a speech and a presentation. There was some kind of a PowerPoint thing in the background, but I don't know if that necessarily is the deciding factor, if it is a speech or a presentation. They don't really explain that part, which kind of bugs me. We'll just call it some kind of a presentation for now, unless they explain it a little bit later. But there's so many questions, even just 5 minutes into the movie. Hopefully they can explain some of it. Anyway, that the lady giving the presentation or the speech is named Dr. Elena. She talks about infant potentiality. And her motto is, "We love babies." That's pretty much all I got from the talk. But then she says more words about creating Joy World, the biggest indoor amusement park. I've got a bunch of weird, creepy looking Five Nights at Freddy's animatronic things running around that they can control somehow. And then there's also this big robot baby looking thing that two full grown men in a tower above, like overlooking the whole thing, control. And they can actually talk to the babies through the baby, which is pretty cool. I thought that was pretty cool. After that whole presentation speech thing, they cut to a house. It looks like it's a house. It might be like a daycare type place. I don't know. It shows some rather large gentlemen carrying two small children, saying that they're plumbers, which seems odd to me, seeing as they're just babies. There's a man and a woman in the house too, and then there's an old Asian lady walking. Not old. She's a older Asian lady walking down the stairs. No explanation to who the people are and what they're doing with these children. So far there's all these questions and no answers. But kept watching it. They cut back to the secret underground laboratory. The original person who was leading the chase for Sly is talking to Dr. Elena, the one who gave the presentation, about how 8 out of 500 test subjects were successful and it cost them $200 million a year for their program. No explanation as to whether that's better than they were expecting or worse than they were expecting or more expensive than it was worth for the type of work that they're doing. She didn't seem upset about that. She didn't seem happy. I don't know if that was just a flaw in the acting, but then they switched to some weird camera shot of Sly in slow motion, repeatedly removing a piece of Lego from a pyramid and placing it back on top. So he was smiling, of course. I'm not smiling right now because I'm not having as much fun as Sly is there, even though he risked his life pretty much trying to escape, getting caught, thrown back into the Lego room. I don't know. So the doctor, Dr. Elena, walks up to Sly, asks him to talk to her because she knows that he can talk somehow. She knows. She thinks she knows that he can talk. and that he knows the secrets to the universe. Or the secret. Not secrets. There's only one. Obviously. I don't quite remember exactly what they were talking about that led up to that, but I guess it makes enough sense for me. Anyway, Sly says something about putting a bow tie on the doctor's butt, which gave me a bit of a chuckle. The lip syncing on some of these shots is pretty bad. You can tell it's not the baby actually talking. You can tell they've edited it in a little bit. Maybe they say some of the words, but probably less than half of them. So it goes back to this the preschool or the daycare, the house. The lady from before, who they showed before with that man, seems to be the mother. She's talking about how the kids are soaking wet. You kids are soaking wet. That's what she said. Which, come to think of it now, the plumber, the guy telling them that the kids were plumbers, kind of makes sense. It maybe they were just learning or in training or something, so there was a bit of a puddle on the floor. Yeah. But anyway, she says, now go for a swim. Because you're soaking wet. Now go for a swim. What? That's the... I don't understand the thought process that was going on behind that. And then she just keeps talking to someone else that was there. Leaving the small children unattended. No lifeguard in sight. They didn't show a lifeguard, at least. I don't know. I assume there's no lifeguard. They didn't show the lifeguard. They showed everybody else. I don't know. Then this other person walks in. He enters the room. Spiky pink hair. Wants to be called Icepick. Apparently he wants to be fired, but they won't fire him. No, he could just quit if he wanted to, but he can't. Maybe he doesn't actually want to be fired, but he wants to pretend like he wants to be fired. I don't know. And then they go back to the older Asian lady. She's opening an envelope and says something about 34 big ones. Big what? Like are those dollars? What are big ones? Are they like, is that like, is a big one $100? Is it thousands? Is it, I don't know. Assuming the $200 million from the secret laboratory is a decent amount of money for running a secret underground laboratory, at least with a success rate of 8 out of 500. That's like a 1.6% success rate. I'd say they're probably doing all right. So it's not crazy to think that 34 big ones could actually mean like $34,000 or even 34 million, come to think of it. They never did mention the success rate at the house. So, or is it a daycare? I don't know. Is the lady the mother? Who's the Asian lady? Like, what are they doing there? All I've seen her do is walk downstairs and open an envelope containing 34 big ones. Maybe she's the boss, or she can't. I don't know. So after that whole thing about the 34 big ones in the envelope, cuts back to the man who I assume to be is the father, videotaping two of the children, and somehow overhears one of them say, by a factor of 4 at least. There's more of the conversation, but I feel like that's all the dad could understand. That's all I'll comment on. The dad asks if they know the secrets of the universe. And the girl says she does, but it seems like they just can't be bothered trying to explain it to anyone. Like, It's all questions, no answers yet, which we're about I feel like we were about halfway through the movie at this point. So maybe now is the point where they'll start explaining a few more things. It'll make a bit more sense. So we go back to the secret underground laboratory. They changed the lock on Sly's door, which seems reasonable to me, considering he had just escaped previously. While they're replacing the lock, though, he's actually building some kind of a device. He's building a contraption that looks kind of like a radar gun type of thing, and then he has a Walkman on his hip. Um, so yeah, I'm not quite sure. Um, but while they're locking the door, he activates the record mode on the Walkman. So while they press the buttons to lock the door, he records that. So he knows exactly which buttons the code is. He knows the buttons to press, which seems like a bit of a flaw, that they would even have to punch the code in originally, now come to think of it. But how is he going to press the buttons if the keypad is on the outside of the door? That they've still got him there, so he'll be stuck in there. Maybe he can tell someone what the sound's like, so they can do it for him. Turns out there's no actual glass in the panes, so he just reaches his arm through and presses the buttons. The door opens up. He runs out. He asks a couple kids if they want to follow him, and he'll take them to the mall as a bribe, which seems suspect. Yeah. But come to think of it, with the doors all having holes in them, obviously the kids are going to escape. They could fit through there. He didn't even need to unlock the door to get out. The whole problem could have been avoided if they used a small portion of that 200 million on decent doors with actual glass in them, or solid doors without glass in them at all. That would have resolved this whole escaping issue right from the beginning. He uses his camera jammer. Apparently, it was a camera jammer. So he points it at the camera, like points it right at the camera. The camera gets all fuzzy. He runs out. So I'm not sure how I feel about this movie so far. Seems to me like they're instilling very bad morals on these little children, and I know you're supposed to empower people, tell them they can do anything that they want. That's the thing that you're supposed to do. But there's a line when you're 2 years old, and the things they do in this movie are just downright unrealistic. Anyways, Sly, he finds this person pushing a stroller, like a double stroller, and coincidentally one of the seats is empty. So he hops in there, and the mom doesn't even notice. Probably because he's so small. He's like he is a 2-year-old. He just jumps in. She also coincidentally is headed to the mall, which is where he wanted to go in the first place. So that all kind of just worked out for him, which was pretty lucky. While he jumps in the stroller, there's the little girl is like sitting on the other side. So he's like here, she's here. They're both facing each other. So that's like his face. This is her face. They're like sitting there. He asked her to take her clothes off. What? Why? I don't know. Maybe he just wants to switch clothes, but that was kind of an inappropriate way of going about the whole situation. She makes a funny joke about at least taking her out to dinner first, but after a few smooth words from Sly, she does take off her clothes, and then magically he is suddenly in her clothes and she's in his clothes. So they just kind of did a swap thing really quick, which is fine, I guess. They didn't really do anything that inappropriate that they showed, at least. We go back to the house. Oh yeah, it just cuts back to the house. Whatever. The house that might be a house, that might be a daycare, that might be a whatever it is. The mom and dad are talking. If they're the mom or dad, I don't even know. They're talking about, okay, so we do know. They're talking about their son being adopted and how they need $50,000 for a new wing to their house. But they don't say the word house, so maybe it is a daycare. I don't but they're also 3 months behind on rent. But also they're receiving $300 a month because they sent one of their kids to a secret lab voluntarily. What? Why would they do that? How? That doesn't even make sense. But they could be making $900 per baby if they supplied the secret lab with 10 or more babies. Maybe they are like a foster home and they're supplying the secret lab with children. That makes more sense. Now things are coming together. So these are the actual villains in this whole thing. They're selling children to a secret lab. By this point, I was ready for the movie to be done. I was yawning a little bit. I was kind of confused. I had to take a little break. I took a bit of a break, like a half hour sort of thing. Long story short, kids get mixed up in the mall because they went to the mall. Sly went home with the parents of the children, and they picked up his brother Wit, who looked identical to him. That was pretty good. That was well done. They take the wrong kid back to the secret lab. They take the other kid to the somewhere along the line. The writers of the movie decided it needed a boost in the humor department, and they unveiled the fact that the lab is called Liechtenstein. And they repeated that word 5 or 6 times in a row, just in case you missed it the first few times. They added it in over and over and over, just to make sure that you heard it. Overall, this movie was quite well thought out. They had some parts that didn't quite make sense to me, but maybe it'll make sense after I watch it a couple more times. I would say this is a like a I give it a 4 out of 10. I would give it a 4 out of 10, but maybe it's just because I don't really understand the whole thing. There's probably some deeper meanings that I'm not catching. It wasn't the greatest movie I've ever seen, but it also wasn't that good. Thank you. The house